Got it.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone to ANC 34G's meeting for the first meeting in our first meeting in September. It's actually the first meeting we've had since the end of July, since we don't ordinarily meet in August. So it seems like it's been a very long time since we've gotten the gang back together again. So glad to have everybody here. The only one we're missing tonight is Michael Zeldin, and we will congratulate him on his 40th wedding anniversary, which is today. And so he's deservedly taking the evening off and being with his family. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of ANC 34G, and I represent the single member district that is 34G03, and that's basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. And we'll introduce the other commissioners. Commissioner Gore.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01. And I represent from Oregon Avenue down to Western, past Pinehurst Circle, back over towards Beach Street and up Western that way.
And John.
I'm the commissioner for single member district 02. Basically, the borders are generally between Oregon Avenue on the east and Utah on the west, Military Road on the south, and close to Wise Road on the north.
And Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Frombludi. I represent District 7, which is the area approximately bounded by Nevada, Nebraska, Military, and Reno.
And Connie.
Good evening. My name is Connie Chang, and I'm the commissioner for single member district number 5. And that covers 2,000 or so constituents who live on Connecticut Avenue from Legation up. So it goes past Chevy Chase Community Center Public Library, hooks around the circle, and it goes down Broad Branch Market. And then it comes into a little kind of, I don't know, like a little dreidel kind of section all the way down to Jocelyn and bounded by Nevada and Chevy Chase Parkway.
Okay, Peter.
I'm Peter Jocelyn. I represent District 6, which runs from the Western Avenue border with Maryland between 41st and the Chevy Chase Circle, down to Military, back up to 41st, and with a peninsula to the east that includes Kanawha, Military, and part of Legation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you all. We have 6 commissioners here tonight, which is a quorum, and we can conduct business therefore. As we have for now more than a year and a half, we're still meeting virtually, and that means that the commissioners will all be panelists in this webinar. And we'll have access to video and audio. For all those who are going to participate, however, Commissioner Gore will elevate you to a panelist position when your turn comes in the agenda. And if you've got questions or want to make a comment, we can also recognize you there as well. If you hold up your hand. We ask you please to use the Q&A function and the chat function. Q&A for questions and the chat function for comments if you want to write something to all of the people who are participating, both the panelists and the attendees. We expect to have a lot of discussion tonight with Director Lott from DDOT, and so if any of you want to participate in that, please let us know by raising your hand. Also, please, if your name is not accurate in the listing of participants, please change your name so that we'll be able to recognize you and easily elevate you to a panelist position if we need to. Okay, the first thing we need to do is adopt the agenda, and I've got one change that was requested by Director Lott. He's asked to come on earlier in the meeting tonight. And so after we have the discussion of the special exception application for 3201 Jocelyn, we'll then go directly to Director Lott. and have that discussion. And then following that, we'll have reports on the small area plan process and on the racial and social equity planning committee. Okay, with that modification, all those in favor of adopting the agenda? 6-0, okay. The first item is to several announcements, and I guess they sort of piled up as a result of our not having met for a while. But the first is one that's coming up just this Saturday, and that's Chevy Chase DC Day. And this has always been a good opportunity for us to get to know each other and get to know the businesses along Connecticut Avenue and to participate in a lot of fun things. And we didn't have Chevy Chase DC Day last year because of the pandemic, but we are having it this year. Be Saturday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And it will be all along the avenue, the business district of the avenue, with concentrated activities around the community center and the library. There will also be a historic Chevy Chase DC historic walking tour that will be from 11 until 12, and that will start at the Avalon Theater. And Commissioner Chang has also arranged for a pop-up vaccination center for anyone who has not had a COVID vaccine. And so that will be an opportunity for you to get vaccinated. And finally, the ANC and the Office of Planning will have tables at the Chevy Chase DC Day with information about developing the Chevy Chase small area plan. And you can see a full list of all the activities, and there are really quite a lot this year on the Chevy Chase Citizens Association website. The next thing is I made an announcement at our last meeting in July about the the MPD Citizens Advisory Council's annual police awards banquet that was scheduled for September 29th. Because of some concerns about the Delta variant and other COVID-19 concerns, that's being postponed until November 17th. And so we'll have more information on that at a later point. Next are a couple of announcements with regard to the Episcopal Children's Center. The first is that we've discussed in past meetings the lease that Murray has entered into with the Episcopal Center to use the sports fields behind the Episcopal Center buildings. And they've been working on plans for the development of that area as sports fields. And they are going to present those plans to the commission on our September 27th meeting. That's 2 weeks from tonight. And they hope to then file the application for approval of these plans with the Board of Zoning Adjustment sometime in October. This is going to be an important change in that immediate neighborhood. And so we certainly hope we'll have a lot of people from that neighborhood participating. At our request, Murray is going to be passing out a flyer to all of the residents in that immediate area along Nebraska and Utah and the adjacent streets behind the Episcopal Center. And that will provide additional information for the residents and also the link to our meeting, which will also be on our website. There is more information that's available on Murray's project website, and we'll have a link to that in our minutes to our meeting. But you can just search for Murray and Episcopal Children's Center, and you'll be able to find it. And I'm told that by tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow afternoon, they will have a diagram or design of what their plans are for the sports fields. And that will be, I think, helpful for anyone who's interested in making comments about their plans. Next, the commission testified some time ago in May about vacant and blighted houses in our neighborhood. We were sort of surprised to find as many vacant and blighted houses as we did. There were 8 or 10 in our neighborhood. And since then, we've been working with DCRA on a pilot project to identify ways that DCRA can improve its inspection and enforcement of vacant and blighted properties. And as a result of that, there's been some improvement in some of the properties that we identified. For instance, 2900 Military Road, which had been a real bad instance of blighted property. The house was completely gutted out and then boarded up, and had been that way for 2 years. And I think as a result of the efforts that we made with DCRA, there's a new owner now, and they have begun construction, active construction there. I was there last week, and it looks like they're really going to restore that house, and there's going to be a new family living there. We're very optimistic about that. Another one at 6005 Utah, which I believe is in John Higgins' single member district. That house has been vacant for 30 years. And as a result of this action taken by DCRA at our urging, that house, the yard's been completely cleaned up. The house has been sold, and there's a new developer who's going to refurbish it and put it on the market. So those are good things. There's still some owners with other properties who have not taken the steps that we think are necessary, and we're still working with DCRA on that. But we're hopeful that the experience in our ANC can be used throughout the district to address this really what's a widespread problem of vacant properties.
Mm-hmm.
And the last announcement that I have is with regard to redistricting. And I just got this afternoon from Councilmember Che's office. The council's subcommittee on redistricting will hold a public hearing on the bill for redistricting as a result of the census. And that hearing will be on September 29th at 10 a.m. And as I'm sure most of you know, the district must adjust the ward boundaries every 10 years so that the 8 wards will have approximately the same population based on the 2020 census. There is a bill that has been introduced, but it's basically just a placeholder. It doesn't change the boundaries at all. And so they were waiting for the census data that came in August. And I think that's going to then substantially change that bill that's already been filed. Witnesses may testify at this hearing on September 29th by signing up before 5 p.m. on September 27th. And there will be a link in our minutes to that as well. The more information will be available at the council's redistricting website, which you can just search for. And then finally, in Commissioner Zeldin's absence, he asked that I make an announcement for him with regard to the DCPS, the public schools' use of the Episcopal Children's Center buildings. He says that on June 30th, Chancellor Fairby and the Deputy Chief of Facilities met with Stephanie Nash, who's the president and CEO of the Episcopal Children's Center, and Phil Collier, who's the vice chair of the board, and Michael Zeldin, Commissioner Zeldin, to discuss the possibility of DCPS purchasing the ECC or a portion of it. And that they also discussed some leasing options as well. The chancellor expressed a willingness to purchase all or part of the ECC. And he explained that DCPS cannot, however, enter into long-term leases. They had a full discussion of what purchase would look like. And Mr. Nash and Mr. Collier advised us to take the matter up with the board. And on July 20th, the board met and voted against both options, in part because of the desire to resume programming in the near term. All parties agreed to stay in touch to see if other options became available going forward. Chancellor Fairby and Commissioner Zeldin agreed to continue to work together to explore other options. The upshot regarding ECC space is that unless DCPS is authorized to enter into a long-term lease with ECC, it's not a viable option for any classroom expansion of Lafayette at this time. And we had hoped that that was going to be possible, but it does not look like it will be. Okay, other commissioners' announcements? Peter.
I have just 2. in anticipation of what Mr. Speck talked about with the Chevy Chase Day, a group of us, including Commissioner Gore, have been trying to clean up our main street on Connecticut Avenue. And I think I personally would like to thank Robert Gordon of the Chevy Chase Citizens Association for both mobilizing us to get out there, but also trying to have, mulch and to make the tree boxes a little better than they were before. I think we have retrieved a couple benches that were utterly overgrown, and so you could actually sit on them without having weeds under your butt. That's all an improvement. And then this being the curtain raiser for the fall, I want to repeat, particularly to the folks who make regular announcements here, other than Randy, who is very good at giving me written text. I am very reluctantly doing the job, but not accepting the title of secretary of this commission. And I need all the help I can get. And that means written announcements. Thanks.
Feel your pain, Peter.
I know you do. And you better.
Other commissioner announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the substantive part of the agenda. And just for everyone's information, there are now 12 attendees other than commissioners. Now, the first item on the agenda is a discussion and possible vote on a special exception application at 3201 Jocelyn Street to add a second story to the existing house. And this is in my single member district, and so I will take the lead on it. Lisa, if you could elevate Katie Hall and Chris Hutchinson.
Can you promote me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I neglected to do that, didn't I? Okay. All right. Okay, you're co-host.
Got it. Okay.
And Michael Romero, I think, is also going to be presenting, who's their architect.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome to all of you. Katie and Chris, I've met you before and you showed me your plans at your house. And Michael, we're glad to have you here to help out. I understand that Michael is going to be doing the primary presentation, but that Katie and Chris are here to answer any questions that it has. So Michael, you want to begin? Let me make sure that you've got, that you can, I'll make you a co-host so that you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. I will do that now. Okay. Good evening, commissioners. I will be very brief. I know that there are some people who would like to provide comment on this, so I will give a brief description of the project. My name is Michael Romero. I'm the architect for this project. I thank you for your time. What we are proposing and asking for a special exception for is to build a one-story addition on top of an existing converted sunroom. This is at 3201 Jocelyn Street at the corner of 32nd and Jocelyn. To orient yourself here on the first slide, north is up. And to zoom in a little bit on the actual plot itself. So you have an existing single-family two-story center hall colonial. And then on the east side, you have an existing garage. And on top of that, a sunroom, which has been converted previous to my clients, the owners, purchasing the house. And the project is simply to add an addition on top of the converted sunroom. Katie and Chris's family is young and they're growing and they need more space. So you can see right away with this lot that that they're hamstrung in many different areas, from being on a corner to the abnormally shaped geometry of the lot. And their house is a very typical center hall colonial rectangular shape with the sunroom and garage addition to the right. The existing footprint is sitting within the side setback. And you can see here that the side setback being 8 feet and it's 4.8 currently. And so that's what we're asking for the special exception. We aren't adding any footprint. In fact, we are coming off of the front 2 inches to stay outside of the building restriction line. The initial survey showed that I think this corner is something like 1.5 inches into the building restriction line. So we're not going to mess with any of that. And so we're going to come back an inch or so off of the front of the existing first floor. And then the only exception being that we're asking for is the side setback reduction. This is the first floor plan, so you can see that part of the project is to renovate the ground floor to make it more in the sunroom to make it more livable, mainly just replacing windows and filling in the northern half, which faces the neighbor with wall for privacy. And then as proposed in the second floor, simply adding a small bedroom and a master suite for one of the bedrooms, so that there's 3 bedrooms on this floor. And in terms of elevations, the existing house is brick. And we're proposing to do a hardy plank and trim addition, carrying the existing roof line across with a pair of windows on each floor aligned with the garage below. And then the east elevation, carrying the same language as the existing sunroom on the first floor, and then adding 2 windows on the second floor. And then the north elevation, which I said is facing the neighbor, is just a wall so that there's not any privacy issues there. I'll keep it there because I'm sure that there are questions. I'm happy to answer them, or if Chris and Katie want to answer them as well. This is a pretty straightforward project, in my opinion. I think it's a reasonable proposal given the constraints that the lot presents. Thank you for your time.
Katie and Chris, do you have any more to add to that?
No, I think Michael covered our project pretty well, but we're here to answer any questions. Appreciate everyone's time.
Okay, we'll first go to questions from the commissioners, and then we'll take comments and questions from the attendees. If you want to speak about this, please raise your hand so that we can recognize you. Okay, commissioners, any commissioner questions or comments?
Randy?
Yeah, yes, John.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, will this exceed or will this comply with current height levels or height restrictions?
Yes. There will be no additional height.
Okay. Is it now the original room was a garage, is that right? And was converted to a living space?
So I'll go back to the front elevation. The original room on the lower floor, which is the basement level, is the garage. And then the original room on the first floor was a sunroom, and it was converted and enclosed previously. And we're just basically making cosmetic changes to that floor. And so what's new is basically this second floor and the roof above it.
Okay. Chris probably knows more about this than I do, but hardy plank is kind of a tricky construction issue, I believe. Will that comport with the rest of the siding of the house? Will it make any weight issues or anything like that?
The rest of the house is actually brick. This is a very, including in fact the structure in the garage up to this point is a solid masonry and then a slab. This type of project, stick framed on top of that, we don't see any issue. My structural engineer and I deal with this sort of project in these types of interventions all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other commissioners' questions?
Yeah, I've got a
Chris?
comment.
Oh,
Yeah,
let Chris
I-
go first.
Yeah, I think this looks, I mean, I don't have any real objection to it. The only suggestion I might make, and that this is a design, I'm an architect, I've been involved with this kind of stuff before, is that maybe to preserve the look of the original Center Hall houses, and maybe make the new roof a little different from the old one, so you can tell what, so it expresses the addition a little more. And, you know, because right now the proportion of the houses is kind of off center, whereas the original house was a Center Hall colonial. Just a thought, but that's what's often done with historic houses. You try to differentiate the addition a little more from the original house.
Yeah, so this house is quite unique in that the second floor, the height of the ceiling isn't actually the same height as the top plate. It's one of those that has the wedges. So when we try to intervene with the new second floor, it was very difficult to either, we didn't want to go above the existing roof line, and to go underneath it would have basically not allowed us to have the head height that A, we require, and B, to make it even reasonable as a proposal. So we tried our best to that was our first thought, exactly as you say, but it just wouldn't work with the specifics of the construction of the existing house.
Well, maybe you could use a different shingle color or something. It's just a suggestion. It might preserve the proportions a little better, but I have no objection to this.
Thank you, sir.
Connie, did you have a comment or question?
The only thing I was going to ask was, were the neighbors consulted and what did they say?
Sure. Katie or Chris, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did canvass the neighborhood. Actually, Michael, if you don't mind going up to the top slide where we have the plot, we can show the neighborhood. So what we tried to do is talk to all the neighbors immediately next to us. So if you're looking at going to the west, the three plots in the middle, we've spoken with all those neighbors and they have no objection. The one directly next to us also had no objection. Across the street from us, going across Jocelyn, in plot was at 39, had no objection, and then 38 had no objection, and then 11 over to the right had no objection. The one that potentially did have objection was 29. That was Gene, our neighbor. We were not able to engage in a substantial amount of conversation with him. He didn't really want to talk about the project, so he did not approve. And I know, Randy, we had spoken to you a couple weeks ago to potentially invite Gene to this conversation, to enable him to speak if he wanted on his reasoning and logic. And we do have letters as well that we've got in our package from those neighbors. We had them sign saying that they had no objection to the program, to the project.
Okay, any other commissioners? Connie, you have anything further?
No, I was just going to ask, I mean, was this neighbor Gene, what was the objection? Was that revealed at all in any conversation, or it was just silence?
It's hard to give a specific detail, but his quote was, "I don't like how the neighborhood is going." And that was about as much context as he gave before he walked away. So we didn't actually get a chance to share with him the specific plans, as he would not review them or engage in conversation. So that's pretty much as far as we got with him, unfortunately.
My daughter and I tried to go over there and try a different technique. And you know, I'm 8 months pregnant, and we have a 3-year-old, and he just slammed the door on our faces. So I don't know. He wouldn't even give me the chance to talk about what we were working on.
And my last question is, how long will this construction take?
I would bet,
you know,
sorry.
Michael.
Chris.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So there's the initial conversations that we've had with the contractors. First of all, probably not starting obviously not until at least December when the hearing is, but probably more like January, February. Given the winter, I'm not sure exactly, but he estimated 4 to 6 months just to be conservative. But that seems to be conservative to me. I would think hopefully it would take 3 to 4 months, but construction's a little weird right now, but hopefully by the new year, it'll be a little calmer and more predictable.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do any of the attendees wish to speak on this issue?
Randy, I just promoted Margarita Rothenberg.
Okay,
Hi, Randy and fellow commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I live at 3200 Jocelyn Street, across the street from Katie and Chris, and I want to voice my support for their project. We've been very fortunate in this immediate neighborhood to have young families willing to invest in existing homes and to adapt existing homes to 2021 requirements for their families. Prior to Katie and Chris purchasing this home, it was a rental property with out-of-town owners for approximately a dozen years. And so while basically the house was maintained, that period did mean that renovations that one would expect were not done during the time period and the like. So therefore, I would just like to say that I do support their request for the exception. As a neighbor, as a longtime neighbor, I've lived here for since 1984, so 37 years.
thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right, this seems like a very reasonable request to me. We often encounter situations like this in houses that were built 50, 60, 70 years ago, longer than that, and don't meet the basic zoning requirements now. And then you want to put an addition on, and you're already hamstrung by the existing violation of the zoning code. So this is a very typical situation, it seems to me, and putting a second story on this house makes a lot of sense. I agree that it's great to have Katie and Chris in the neighborhood now, and this is exactly what we ought to be doing with our housing stock so that we improve it and so that families can live here. So I would move that we advise the BZA that we do not have any objection to this request for a special exception. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Okay, thank you very much, Chris and Katie. We appreciate it. Michael, we appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations on your
very much.
second, your baby to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Randy, you might have to, I don't know if Michael is dropped off. You might have to change his.
No, he's off.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. The next item on our agenda, we've moved up the discussion with DDOT Director Everett Lott. And we're going to discuss a number of necessary safety changes to the hazardous intersection at Chevy Chase Parkway and Military Road, and a number of other DDOT issues, including the Chestnut Street sidewalk update as well. And that's an ongoing project right now. And Lisa and Peter are going to be shepherding this discussion through. So I'll turn it over to either Lisa or Peter, whichever one wants to take it.
Lisa.
All right. Well, nice to see you, Director Lott.
Hey, good
How
to
are
see
you?
Commissioner. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you
Good.
for coming here tonight. Christian,
Absolutely.
can you hear us okay?
Yes, ma'am. It's a pleasure
All
to
right.
meet you, Ms. Gore.
Thank you. Before we get started, is there any other members of your staff that need to be promoted to panelists?
Yeah, we have Jared Voigt, I believe, is on the line, and he should be promoted if possible.
Okay.
And then I believe Tanya Pell, who is our Ward for Community Engagement Officer, I believe is also listening in.
Ah, yes, got it.
And I'm
Then
not
we have-
sure there are others.
I think Linda Bailey too from DDOT.
Got it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Linda, I have on here twice.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't ask you to raise your hand.
Yeah, I just promoted. Both of them. There we go. Okay, so I think we got everybody on the line. Do I see Tanya?
She's there.
It's on the phone.
Okay,
Oh, she's there, Tanya. Yeah.
okay. So we have quite a few things. I know you asked to be moved up, so I'm sure you don't want to spend all your night in the ANC meeting. But I don't know, Peter, if you want to do your discussion first. My discussion, Director Lott, is definitely around Chestnut Street and just some timeliness issues on the 311 request. I did see Christian's email regarding, and also we got an email from Jam Hendrick on the speed tables that are going to be installed on Chestnut Street. But I do definitely want to discuss the community engagement issue regarding that project and just some of the issues that I sent over to Tanya a couple of weeks ago. But okay. Peter's issue was on the agenda first, so I'm definitely going to defer to him, and that probably will be the longest discussion.
Well, Director, I'm happy to hear from you generally, but I mean, my first concern is about an intersection that we've been talking to DDOT about for certainly 2.5 years, and have met with Derek and Kristen at the intersection as recently as July. We have some steps taken by DDOT, but not all the ones that were promised, and the intersection remains dangerous. I think Kristen has tried to run cover for you and avoid us running through every single service request that we filed recently. And I don't intend to bring up all of those, but I think that some of them are illustrative of problems that we as ANC commissioners, and more importantly, that citizens have trying to get responses from DDOT, and we could review those. And so I'd be happy to cede the floor to you first, if you have any initial comments you want to make, and then I can start with Military Road and Chevy Chase Parkway.
Sure. And I can just kind of jump in and talk a little bit about some of the concerns that I think are germane to probably most of the commissioners, if not all the commissioners on the call day and the residents. And then I can move into Military Road and the Chevy Chase Parkway. One of the things I really want to just really highlight is that I'm fully aware of the challenges that have been raised, that have been brought to my attention regarding a whole traffic safety assessment or a traffic safety initiative process, and kind of how long that process has been. And it was probably at one of my last hearings that I had a few months ago. One of my commitments is that we were actually changing that process. And so hopefully over the past several months, since I made that commitment to the council, to Councilmember Che, the chair of the Transportation Committee, we've already actually started implementing some of those improvements. And we've seen and heard some of the feedback from some of our constituents and commissioners throughout the district that they have seen some improvements. So hopefully you all are experiencing seeing some of that. Let me tell you a couple things that we're doing or that we have done. One, we have moved that particular process over to to another division within the agency. So we had several different divisions within the agency that were focused on safety. So we had to consolidate that because what we recognize is that there's a lot of confusion. One team may be doing something related to safety, but not communicating to the other, and vice versa. And so now all that has been consolidated under one administration, one director of that particular unit. Our chief on that unit is actually focused on safety as a whole. Linda is on the call.
Who is that, by the way? Who is that director?
Ellen Jones, Chief Ellen Jones. She actually lives in 34G as well. She's our chief of our information project delivery, excuse me. And so she is responsible for that. And all the units that were responsible for safety have now been rolled up underneath her. So that's one change. The second change is that what we also recognize is that many things that we were asking in the past to be submitted as a traffic safety investigation did not necessarily warrant a traffic safety investigation. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If a street sign had fallen down or had come down or had been knocked down, we were asking for that to be submitted through 311, which we still are asking for that to be submitted through 311, but we're not requiring an investigation or an assessment to that. We're up there essentially saying we'll replace that and put that back up within 48 hours. If a traffic signal is out, we're not requiring for that to go through some type of assessment or some type of analysis. We're just requiring that you all notify us of that, and then we'll go out and make that adjustment and make that correction. If a street sign has been knocked down, same type of thing. So it's things that don't require us to have to do a study or investigation, then we're not going to do that. We're sending over to our field operations branch, and they will go out and make those immediate repairs. And again, usually within 24 to 48 hours. So that's one improvement, because a lot of things that we were seeing coming through the TSA process were things that should have been handled, within 24 to 40 hours already, but we were putting them through that process that required 130 days, if not longer. And we realized that just was not acceptable. So that has been eliminated. We've kind of bifurcated and looked at what requires an assessment. And if it requires some major type of overview of the roadway traffic patterns, those are things that may require some assessing, and for our traffic safety assessment team to actually look at more closely to make sure that any of the movements that we might change don't have some other impact on other surrounding neighborhoods or other surrounding streets. So that's one of the processes that we've changed. The other piece of it is, I mentioned in my hearing a few months ago, is that we have a contract that does all of our traffic safety assessments. And what I found is that we weren't getting what we were paying for, so to speak. So, and I said we would actually look at employing another contractor to do those assessments as well. So we actually have two contractors that would be doing those assessments. So in the new fiscal year, we've been working and queuing everything up now. So in the new fiscal year, October 1, we can go ahead and start the procurement to get a second contracting team in place that will be able to do those assessments. So we'll have two different contracting units that will be available to do those traffic safety assessments. So for anything that warrants a traffic safety assessment, as opposed to only having one contractor, one vendor that was doing it, we'll have two contractors, two vendors that will be responsible for doing that. And we have clearly set up deliverables in terms of what the timeframes and the timelines are that we're expecting for those to be completed. So that's the second major adjustment that we've done. And Commissioner, I see your hand.
Yes, a quick question on that. So you
Sure.
mentioned that you guys have the deliverables for the new timelines on the traffic safety assessment based on so there'll be two contractors performing those assessments. Is the old contractor one of the two, or is the old contractor no longer?
No, so the old contractor still is one of the two.
Okay.
But what we did, we essentially put them on notice. So we normally would give them a year-long contract, but we essentially gave them 6 months. And we're going to reassess each month. If they're meeting their deliverables, then we can add the additional 6 months onto that. If they're not meeting the deliverables, then I'm looking to look at another company completely that would take over that particular assessment contracting vehicle. So we have two contracting companies that we'll be working with. One is the existing one for 6 months. Again, if they are showing that they can meet the deliverables as we have laid them out, then we'll go ahead and renew them for an additional 6 months for a full year. If they're not able to meet those, then we will end that relationship with that particular contractor.
Okay. And then my second question is that going to reduce the timeline for the overall traffic safety assessment process? Because right now it's what, 200 and some odd days, or 100 some?
It really depends on what we're studying, what the investigation is. So it could range from something as simple as 30 days to 130 days to beyond. So it really depends on what's been investigated and what we're assessing. Some of those, just so I can put out there, really do require us to look over a full year, because we want to make sure that we're not evaluating a situation, let's say during the summertime when volumes are lower, when schools are in session. So some of those may require us to look at situations over, a 9-month period or something like that, just so we can make sure we're getting the right type of data to be able to make the right assessment, to be able to make the right adjustment. So
Okay.
it will just depend. But overall, we really are trying to make sure that both contractors know that we are expecting them to meet the deliverables in terms of the timelines. But the other piece that's really key and big on this is that that will really help to move things along is that, again, we're not moving everything into these TSA. So again, a fallen sign, a street pole that's been knocked down, a traffic that's been knocked down. Those are things that we're going to not put as a TSA. We're going to handle those in-house directly, and we'll just within 24 to 40 hours go out and make those fixes and repairs. So those are some things that really were consuming a lot of the time. And as we remove those out, then the contractors can really focus on those things that really require an assessment.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and Director, are you finished, or do you have other remarks you want to make?
Well, just as it pertains to the TSA
question.
process, those are the main changes that we're making. So I'm happy to stop there and either address any questions or move into the military road and Chevy Chase.
Let's talk about military road and Chevy Chase.
John had a question, I think, before we move on.
So I was just, my issue was military road and Chevy Chase and how this affects it. This is not quite personal, but close. As Peter knows, one of my neighbors here at the Norwood Life Plan Community was involved in an accident at that spot. And Peter was Johnny on the spot, very gracious and gallantly helped the woman home from that spot. And she was extraordinarily grateful to Peter for his courtesy. And those accidents seem to happen pretty frequently. It's not, I guess, a stop sign that's been turned over or anything else. It may be, quote unquote, a design flaw. But whatever it is, I don't think 270 days of an assessment really fits the bill here when these things are consistent and chronic at that particular spot. So, if it's a design flaw in that roadway, it seems to me that would and if you go look at the police reports and the insurance reports for that particular spot in Washington, D.C., you'll probably find quite a few reports. So I would like to see, how that could be made a priority, or what the parameters are for getting at that problem.
Absolutely, Commissioner. I'm happy to address Military Road and Chevy Chase and kind of transition into that now. So,
Could I just add my 2 cents on this, because and that is that this is a case where we've already done the traffic. I mean, whatever the timetable is and whether you shortened it, we already have a traffic assessment study of this intersection. And we've had it for almost 2 years. And we have had meetings since then. And I think those of us on the commission, including the chair who was with me meeting with Derek Voigt and Kristen there in July, have been quite understanding that this is one of these intersections that looks like it's just another local intersection, but as it turns out, it involves a road that is very important to both the city and to the federal government. It's some designation that ups the ante when we talk about changes on Military Road. We, I think, have been quite understanding about that fact. We have, and the neighbors who I worked with before I became a commissioner, have tried to suggest solutions that take into account the categories you have to work with as a municipal official. The real problem I have here is that we keep having what seem like reasonable conversations. I was thoroughly impressed that Derek Voigt came out. What he had to say about the intersection was smart. Some of the observations, even though I've lived next to it for 22 years, I never spotted it without he brought his expert eyes to it and he spotted it. The problem is that very little has changed. Randy Speck and I agreed to a series of changes that Derek recommended, and we agreed to them as first step changes. And if they don't work, we'll go and take further action. Except for a change of a stop sign, none of them have been implemented, and school has started, and that's a dangerous intersection. Can we get this stuff done now? I mean, the next 2 weeks, for example, so that we can see if it works, see if it makes it more safe. So please make your remarks in the context of that.
Sure. Commissioner Gosselin and Higgins, I appreciate that feedback. And let me just say that, that intersection of Military Road and Chevy Chase Parkway, as you all have mentioned, we've previously studied that intersection under 2 safety investigations, I think in 2018 and again in 2020. And in both of those studies, we made the same determination concerning the crashes that were being experienced. There's a crash pattern between the southbound Chevy Chase Parkway and the eastbound Military Road movements. That's the bottom line. This is occurring essentially due to the fact that the westbound Military Road, the standing queues at the Connecticut Avenue Military Signal are blocking the sight distance, right? So one of the things that we proposed, I believe in 2018, we're still proposing it now and recommending this, is that the one-way northbound conversion for the north leg of the intersection was, we would eliminate that conflict, that concern. So essentially what we're proposing is eliminating for that one block, the southbound movement for that one block. Because what's happening when you're on Chevy Chase Parkway going south, if you're trying to make that left-hand turn, which is going east onto Military, that's where we're seeing a lot of these crashes. I believe we were met with some resistance back in 2018 when we proposed that before. We're making that same recommendation now. What I would suggest and what I would encourage, and we talked a little bit earlier this afternoon, the team and I talked about this a little bit earlier this afternoon, is what we'd like to do when you're asking about, can we do something within the short term very quickly? We want to propose this as for us to do it on a trial basis for maybe 180 days. So that way the neighbors, because I believe it was concern from a couple of neighbors on one of the adjacent streets, Legation Street, that had a concern about that. And so what we propose is that we make that adjustment. That's a very quick fix. That requires essentially us doing some painting and some sign solutions. So it's nothing permanent. So that means we can very quickly and easily remove it if that's something at the end of the day the neighborhood ultimately did not like. But that's going to eliminate those crashes on.
Okay, Director, let me just interrupt here and say I understand the proposal, and frankly, I mean, fine with me, but I know that we're going to get blowback from Legation Street, and their concern is, I think, twofold, which is that the current traffic that's southbound Chevy Chase Parkway will find themselves facing a one-way against them as they come towards Legation and that one block, and so they'll start. The traffic will increase right away on Legation. The other concern is that as traffic again builds on Connecticut, and particularly if it builds post-COVID, if there ever is a post-COVID, and we have protected bike lanes on Connecticut, there's going to be a great increase in traffic trying to find ways around the stoppages on Connecticut, and that they will face even more additional traffic, the people on Legation. The proposals that we talked with, and I thought we had an agreement about in July with Derek Foy, are ones that left open the chance to, if these fail, to pick up the one-way solution, but would test the proposition that some additional markings, a movement of the center line in the road, and a bollard island would signal to southbound travelers on that road that there's an important intersection there, which frankly, they don't know now. I mean, one of the reasons these people keep getting nailed coming out of the southbound Chevy Chase Parkway is they don't know there's a big intersection there. And I think that, I mean, what surprises me here is it's not that I object to the solution that you formally proposed, but we saw the blowback. We came up with solutions that didn't require, buy-in from Legation Street residents. And Derek agreed with us, and I thought we were just going to do that and see if it worked. And if it doesn't work, we'll go to a one-way street. But we haven't had. But it hasn't. Nothing's been put out there. Not nothing. You did enlarge the stop signs, but this is one of these things where we have the conversation. We surface the issue. We have the conversation. we come to what seems like an agreement and then nothing happens. And so that's pretty frustrating as a commissioner. And so I turn the floor over to you. That's my 2 cents on that subject.
So real quick, not that anything's happened. I actually drove down there. I live in the neighborhood as well. So I actually drove by there this evening just to make sure. So we actually have done the signage already, and the work orders have been put in place for some of the other things that you just referenced. And those are just in the queue for those to be installed. What I am saying to you, however, though, is something that you just said is that we can try this and see if it works. Ultimately, if it doesn't work, what that means is that there's continuing to be crashes.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to avoid now. From our professional expertise, from our engineers' assessment, what's going to eliminate those crashes is to eliminate that one block southbound movement. That's going to eliminate the crashes. I understand that there's going to be some blowback, but when we're talking about safety, we're talking about the safety of our neighbors, the safety of the travelers on Chevy Chase Parkway, our military. I'm fine with the blowback. Again, it may be, and we got those work orders already in the queue, and so that you will see that those things will be implemented. We're just a matter of waiting for those for the contract to come on board, and that'll be happening in the new fiscal year because we've run out of money for this fiscal year. So that'll happen in October, the 1st of October for the additional things, but the signage is already up. But the one thing that I really just want to caution, and I'm glad that you said that, is that we'll try these out, see how it works. And if it doesn't work, which means they're still experiencing crashes, I want to eliminate those crashes now.
I understand. And so Director, I would just put against your engineering background. I've lived at that intersection for 22 years. It is the visual evidence that there is a big, important intersection coming up is really minimal. And I'm going to make a bet. I'd be happy to make a $5 bet with you that the things that Derek Voigt and Randy and I on our side talked about will make a big difference and will make the difference that we need to make there. And if they don't, I'm with you 100%. But I just, rather than, face, the political problem of trying to sell the thing, let's get something in the ground now and see if it makes a difference. And so, Lisa, you look like you.
Randy, then Chris.
If I could real quick, this reply. So again, we have the work orders in place, and Derek is on the line, so he can talk about when we expect those to occur. But again, some of those we're just waiting for the new fiscal year to start, which will be in October. But he can definitely give you a little bit more specifics as to when we're expecting to have those additional things implemented for that particular roadway or intersection, excuse me.
Let me just encourage an incremental approach to this, which is what we had decided on with Derek. And rather than going to a one-way street there for that one block, I'm hesitant to do that because we've been through this kind of experience before at 39th and Jennifer Streets, where they did change, the DDOT did change for one block area. It's one way now, and on Jennifer Street. And that took 6 months at least for people to get accustomed to it. And people were just running right through it and not paying any attention to it. And it became actually more hazardous because there was no longer a stop sign at Reno Road, and people were just going straight out from Jennifer onto to Reno Road. And it became seriously a problem. And so I think we should do that as a last resort after we have exhausted the other incremental steps that Peter has described. And that, I think, is the best approach right now. And the sooner we can get those in place, the sooner we can determine whether they're going to make any difference.
Sure.
Chris?
Okay, I'm going to differ with you guys here. 39th and Reno that Mr. Speck just talked about, I think it was a great success. Nobody wanted, including myself, that one block to be made one way in the wrong direction. This was a similar issue as Chevy Chase Parkway and Military. Cars were trying to make a left turn onto Reno from 39th, and the visibility was not very good. And there were constant accidents, constant. And everybody in the neighborhood, including myself, was very upset with this idea of making that one block of 39th Street one way away from Reno Road. Well, guess what? It's worked fantastically. There are hardly any accidents. The folks on Jennifer Street see very little increase in traffic. The little jog you have to make to the right on Jennifer and make a left turn on Reno is no big deal. And it's been a big success. Now, I feel the same way about, and I live right near there. I live on 38th and Kanawha, which is very near that intersection. I go through it all the time. Anybody who doesn't know that's going down Chevy Chase Parkway, who doesn't know they're coming to a major intersection is on something, because that military road has been there forever. And it's obviously a major street. And I think a bunch of cones in the middle of the street is going to do nothing. I think the one way, wait a minute, Peter. I think one way away from taking that block, one way, I think you should do a 6-month trial, see how it works. I think that'll solve a lot of problems. And I encourage you to look into that.
John, then Connie, then Peter.
Just one further suggestion on the incremental. What about putting, one of those flashing yellow signs that says dangerous intersection ahead? Something like that.
Yeah,
Again, that's an incremental suggestion, but it might increase the visibility and the awareness issue. That's all. Just one top of the head thought.
Connie?
I don't want to get into the one way or not one way, but this particular intersection, I live just 2 blocks away on Nevada, and I travel along this intersection quite a lot, coming from Connecticut, going east on Military, and I make a left turn actually going north on Chevy Chase Parkway, and that particular intersection, as well as that Legation and Connecticut intersection, meaning if you're going west on Legation going toward Connecticut and you want to make a left turn, okay? The problems with these left turns is that there's no visibility, like the pedestrian walkway, you almost invariably have to cross it to see both sides. And this is the problem with if you're on Chevy Chase Parkway and you're trying to make a left, there's not a lot of space. You can't see until you inch forward. And then the car that's coming from Military going west, toward Connecticut, it's traveling too fast because there's 2 lights and in between is this little teeny intersection. So this is not just this problem. This is a problem in our neighborhood where the visibility is low. And part of it is that sometimes cars park almost very close to the light. They're supposed to be 1 car distance away. They're not. Other parts is just that the way it's designed, it makes it really difficult. At the Garfield, when you come out of the garage, the Garfield is right at that intersection across the way. There is a big mirror. And that mirror is a signal for drivers to be careful. We have the same mirror in my alley behind my house on Nevada. Okay, it's between Livingston and Legation. So when I come out of that alley, I see that mirror. I know that I've got to be careful. Like I have to watch because cars are coming left, meaning if I want to make a left turn, cars are going to come and I've got to be careful. So maybe there's ways that we have to think about, okay, as a driver to help drivers, because people are trying to get where they need to go. And some drivers will be frustrated with not being able to turn. They're just going to find a different way. But there's other intersections that have similar problems. I've had neighbors hit on Connecticut and Legation. My sister almost got hit twice crossing that street. I try to cross my mother who's 81 years old, and it's difficult. People don't necessarily stop. And it's the same problem with having 1 light, an intersection, and another light, and people are just like picking up speed. So when they get to that intersection, they're not slowing down. It's just difficult. So I really urge DDOT to think about that a little bit, about how to help us be able to, for pedestrians and drivers, to be able to cross safely.
Let me just weigh in here and say that I don't want to get into a debate with a fellow commissioner about success or failure of one block one ways. I just want to say that I endorse what Commissioner Speck said. I think that in terms of doing something soon, the right way to do it is to try the things we agreed to in July. And if they don't work, then do something more. And I hope that we can move the discussion on to other issues, but got at least two commissioners saying that here. So Lisa, do you want to, should we do 311 or should we do Chestnut Street, or do you, there are other
Chestnut.
commissioners want to go?
Chestnut. Connie, did you have a question? You're muted.
Yes, I just want to say one more thing on that intersection with Chevy Chase Parkway and Military. Like in New York, I'm from New York City, and New York City, oftentimes with these intersections, we have don't block the box. And I think that's necessary because cars then know that if there's a car, if it's slowing down ahead, they stop at the interest before the intersection. They don't go forward, and that's important. And I don't really see that in DC a lot, the don't block the box, that you can get ticketed or that it's unsafe. And I offer that as another recommendation for trying to make the roads a little safer. And the second thing is some of these signs are obscured and it's hard to see. And I've just noticed it as I was driving for various reasons that they're obscured, tree growth and so forth. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Gore, if I could just ask Derek quickly for Commissioner Goslin to let him know about the other things that we're doing in the intermediary steps and when we should expect those, and then we can move on, if you don't mind, to the next topic.
Yep.
Derek, are you on?
Yeah, certainly, Director. Good evening, Commissioners. What I have heard from our field operations branch is that their pavement marking contract is awaiting the next infusion of funds, which are coming at the fiscal year, as you explained, which is at the end of this month. And so the portion of the contract the portion of the work that was installed by our field operations branch. The pavement markings portion, which will be the change in the center line, the flex post, the stop ahead pavement markings. All of those items come out of the pavement marking side of the business. And that's the item that's being held for the contract.
But I just ask, could you or Director Lott make a commitment that you pick it by the end of October, that work's done?
We'll commit to that. We will commit to that, yes. End of October.
Okay. So Chestnut Street. You guys look like you've definitely got a lot of work done. I live, where I live. I'm off of 31st, so right by there. I try to walk over there as often as possible. A couple things I wanted to ask about Chestnut Street, and I did get the email from Jam on the speed tables. And that is, can you explain what she was basically saying? So I believe she was saying that the speed tables are separate than the contract or the project for Chestnut Street sidewalks. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So the sidewalk project, which includes the sidewalks, a little bit of the landscaping, replacing a couple of the gutters and the drainage, excuse me, that is a separate contract.
Okay.
They will also, at the end of the sidewalk piece, Anchor Construction will come and mill and pave the roadway on Chestnut Street. Once the milling and paving is done, then we'll have a separate company coming in behind them to implement and install the speed tables.
Oh, okay. What's the time?
So all of this we're expecting the sidewalks to be completed sometime between end of this month and the first few weeks of October. And that's including the milling and paving. And so I say within the first 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks of October, we should have the speed tables installed as well.
Okay.
And then the whole project will be completed, but that is a separate project. The speed tables are something separate from the sidewalk project.
Okay. So on the, based on some email traffic between me and Tanya, I reached out to the folks on Chestnut Street. You might've been on that email and got a bunch of feedback that they have on the speed tables. Now, one of the things I'm really concerned with, and I talked to the former Ward 4 rep for DDOT about this at length, is I don't really want to have a lot of email traffic back and forth with their suggestions. I really want a community engagement session so that they can really understand what the speed tables are, you know, how they'll be formulated. There's a lot of questions on where they're going to be located. Some residents, you know, are concerned if they're very close to an intersection. Some are concerned if they're, you know, near houses, driveway. And I believe that DDOT had committed under the Chestnut Street project to, I thought it was 3 engagement sessions. And I believe COVID occurred and interrupted some of those engagement sessions. So are you guys going to give us an engagement session?
Commissioner,
That's
we've
my
been engaged.
question.
Commissioner, we've been engaged in this project with the residents on Chestnut Street for the past many years. I've actually led some of those engagement sessions, and so I know those engagement sessions have happened.
Mhm.
Some of the community members, some of the residents, some of the folks that live on Chestnut Street that were there then may not be here now. But the project we are still moving forward with, and we did have the last engagement session as it pertains to the sidewalks before the sidewalks were implemented. And that was, we met, I believe it was actually with the commission before the implementation of the sidewalks started. We will continue to engage with residents, but a couple of things that you just said, you know, we have standards by which, going to the speed tables, by which speed tables can be applied. You know, they have to be a certain distance from intersections, certain distance from stop signs, and they cannot be right there adjacent to driveways. So those things, we will make sure that we're doing it in accordance with the standards. But at the end of the day, wherever we place them, if we place them in one place, there's going to be a resident or a community person that's not going to be satisfied with it, and we place them elsewhere or try to move and place it somewhere else, someone else won't be satisfied with it. So that's one of the reasons why we're like, you know, we're going to put those things in. The main thing and main objective is to increase safety and to control the speed along Chestnut Street, which I believe you, as a resident of the Hawthorne neighborhood, are aware of the car speeding down Chestnut Street. And so we're really trying to mitigate that. And so we'll do it consistent with the standards. They're not going to be too close to the sidewalk. The speed tables are different type of vertical deflection from a speed bump.
Right.
And so the speed table is more, it's wider.
Right.
And so it doesn't have the same type of effect as a speed bump, which is more vertical.
Right.
And definitely much more, I guess, obtrusive. And so the speed table, you know, they will be consistent with those standards, and we'll make sure that we're applying them based on the standards of where we can locate them, not in front of a driveway. I think it's 100 and something feet away from the stop signs and things like that. And either Linda or Derek can kind of speak about some of those standards, but we want to make sure that we're moving this project forward to make sure that we're trying to increase safety along this particular corridor. And the main thing is really to slow these cars down because, again, a lot of these cars, and we just had an accident last week where a car was overturned on Chestnut Street that I actually was there to witness. So those are the things that are happening. And until we start doing some of these things, we're not going to be able to control that. So that's the main purpose for the sidewalks. One is to narrow the roadway down, but also for these speed tables is really to get cars to slow down. And this is going to really force cars traveling along Chestnut to slow down.
So my thing is this, Director Lott, I don't have any objection to the speed table. I only had 2 residents that expressed any objection. So prior to me signing off, I don't really have a major, you know, reason from the community to not sign off. My concern is that the community gets an opportunity to talk with DDOT and to understand what the speed tables are, where they're going to be, and to answer those set of questions that they asked. And I don't think an appropriate forum is an email communication back and forth with different members of the community. No one from DDOT responded to that email, which had every member on that Chestnut Street list attached to it. So that sends a message. And I understand that we absolutely, and that was one of the issues, if you remember, that came up with Beach Drive. There's a lot of people that said Hawthorne is losing its mind because, oh, there's not people speeding. We see it every day. I go down one street and I'm right at Wise Road. So I think everybody gets that the speed is an issue and the speed tables are going to help. I want to help give them a voice and make sure that they understand what this process is about. And they had some really good questions, and I want DDOT to, you know, communicate and engage with them. I'm just asking for a simple form to do that. Somebody from your office could do a half-hour, 45-minute presentation on Zoom. Whoever comes, let them answer their questions, and give them a forum to engage with you guys. And we don't have that. I mean, you know, it seems like I'm trying to pull teeth to get that, because I've been asking for that for a while. There's other things on Chestnut Street that people have raised. So if you're coming down Chestnut and you're at the intersection of 32nd, that stop sign is completely obscured by those trees. And I stood out there with your project manager, I believe his name is John, and we see, I mean, I wish I would have videotaped the traffic blowing those stop signs at 32nd Street. It is unreal. Now, the one that's heading towards Wise Road, I think those trees really are impactful, and you don't see the stop sign until, you know, the last minute. If you're familiar and you live in that area and you travel that all the time, you know it's coming. But if you're not paying attention and you're not, you know, familiar with that street, you're blowing the sign. You know, by the time you see it, it's almost too late to stop. So that's something we have to talk about. And I don't know if, you know, while we're in the middle of the Chestnut Street, you know, project, if there's something we could do with, you know, discuss with the homeowner. I don't know the right of way, if, you know, you guys can cut the trees or, you know, move the stop sign. But, you know, when we're talking about improving this street and making infrastructure improvements, that one right there is a major issue. And the community has raised that quite a bit too. So I'm just kind of asking for a forum to get these things before the community. And I checked the chat. I don't think there's one person here from Chestnut Street, but you.
Well, a couple things, Commissioner. I'm aware of that particular intersection, and we'll make sure that the project actually makes that adjustment with the stop sign.
Okay.
The construction project, and they'll make that adjustment with the stop sign. Also, there's going to be some refuge islands that are being placed at that particular intersection on both sides of 32nd of Chestnut. So that's also just really to curb, because I've seen the cars 100 times just flow through the intersection. And so that refuge will really force cars to slow down as they approach that intersection. Hopefully they will stop at that intersection before proceeding. But and then last thing, Commissioner, we come to these ANC meetings and we view these ANC meetings as the forum where we can actually have these conversations with the wide group of constituents that are represented in all of the different single member districts that y'all represent. And so we were coming here this evening and come here to the other previous meetings to have those type of conversations about these particular issues. And so we're happy to come out, but that's the reason why we're here tonight, was really just to be able to talk about the different projects or the different issues that are germane to your single member district or other single member districts within the commission.
Well, I'm just going to push back on that, because that's not what was committed. And I had a conversation with Syra about that. No one has communicated with the residents on Chestnut Street that that's the expectation of this meeting for tonight. I do not see one person in the participant list from Chestnut Street other than yourself. And I did not tell the folks on Chestnut Street to come to the ANC meeting tonight that this would be a substitute community engagement session. I mean, and what I asked DDOT staff to do is, if that is what you in fact want to do, then we have to set up a protocol where the community knows that, and that they know, here's your opportunity. That wasn't done. That was not done. I still have not gotten a response from DDOT to my email. So the community, in what I said in that email, let me know how you want to respond. So they're waiting on a response, just like I'm waiting on a response. There's nobody here from Chestnut Street that can offer, you know, any opinion on that. So I don't think that's appropriate. And if that's what we want to do, we have to give the community time to, you know, to gather themselves, make sure that they're aware. You know, sometimes 2 weeks notice is not good enough for a community to make it to an ANC meeting. Everybody's got, you know, schedules that they're trying to meet. if that's what we want to do, then we're going to have to reschedule something because nobody is here.
So, Director, it seems to me that what we're faced here with is either you say you want to engage with the community through an ANC meeting, in which case you ought to come back, or DDOT agrees to do a single member district community engagement event or events with the Hawthorne neighborhood. Which way would you like to go?
No, Commissioner, let me just be clear. What I'm saying is that we use these ANC meetings as an opportunity to engage with the community. And you all put your public notices out about these different meetings, and however those are disseminated, I'm not through email or through the website, that's the information that has been communicated, and y'all usually lay out the agenda in advance about the topics that will be discussed. And so we come out to these meetings, we have our teams, I come out to these meetings, our community engagement officers come out to these meetings to be available to talk about issues. Now, whether folks actually attend and participate, I don't know. But that's kind of the venue by which we do try to make sure that we're going out. We do come out to community meetings, and we've had community meetings in the past. There aren't ANC meetings. But again, you're talking about, we have ANC meetings throughout all 8 wards of this of the community. So
A briefing by your project manager for Chestnut Street.
Say it again, Commissioner, I didn't hear you.
I think courtesy of Commissioner Gore, we had a briefing before the work launched on Chestnut Street. And if memory serves, Commissioner Gore is right that the project manager, whose name I can't remember at the moment, said there were going to be engagement sessions. So look, I trust Commissioner Gore. If you say it should be through the ANC, I'll bet a lot of money, another bet with you, that she'll get out a lot of neighbors to come to another ANC meeting to talk about this. We had this as a brief with you about a variety of issues, and I think our agenda said that. So I agree that she didn't have, the neighborhood was not well notified on this, that this turned out to be the forum, so you might want to commit to coming back. Commissioner Gore, do you?
No, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I had no idea. I understand what you're talking about on the speed tables with the standards and all, but there are other questions, and I think you deserve to hear from the community. The community deserves to hear from you. And if you're going to raise that at an ANC meeting, we kind of need to know that in advance. And we definitely need to know that to adjust our agenda, because that will take up significant agenda time. So, and when I talked to Sire about this, I had a real concern about that, because our agendas can run long. And if it's a, hot topic that's going on, like Chestnut was, things have died down since, that could take up a lot of time on the ANC's business. So, would you be willing to come back and after we give the community notice?
We'll look and see if we can accommodate between now. We'll be looking to see if we can accommodate, Commissioner.
Okay. Tanya has her hand up. Then I know Connie, Randy, and John.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to formally introduce myself to you. My name is Tanya Powell, and I serve as the Community Engagement Specialist for Ward 4. I was listening to you, Commissioner Gore, the project manager for the Chestnut Street project. She has been asking me, and I did reach out to you on occasion. She is very much interested and coming out to do a community engagement session. So I just wanted that to be known during this forum, that she really wants to come out. Her name is Jam Kendrick. And as you know, as you mentioned, she did email us all today, and she wanted to come to tonight's meeting, but I think you mentioned that this wasn't the setting or the form for the Chestnut Street project, I guess, because you wanted something separate. But she also indicated that she is more than willing to come to the next meeting in October. But again, if you would like to do something separate, I could facilitate that for this community. Again, she's very much engaged. She's wonderful. I talk to her regularly.
I'm very familiar with Jam.
So,
Jam.
Yeah.
And,
So,
let me just clarify this. What I meant and what I've been saying is for a separate community engagement session. I have no issue with DDOT staff coming to an ANC meeting and providing a general update. But when we're talking about citizens that have major questions about their infrastructure, about their safety, now about the flip car that happened on Chestnut Street, there's a lot of questions that I get from members, not just on Chestnut Street, but from all of Hawthorne and people not on Hawthorne that use that as a route. In my opinion, in the way I do community service and engagement, I like to do things directly. So if Jam is interested in doing something one-on-one with the community in terms of a community engagement session, that's all I ask. If she can't do that and she proposed today to come to an ANC meeting to give an update, and I haven't discussed that with the rest of the ANC because I got to see what our agenda is like for that proposed time, then we'll work from there. But at least we need, we'll have enough time because I think she proposed in October. We'll have enough time to let the community know what that meeting is going to be about and what topics are on the table so that they can arrange their schedules and make sure they're present. But if she's willing to do something separate outside of that, then I'm all for that.
So if we beat this horse to a pulp?
Yes, Connie? You're on mute.
I understand. Yes. Is it possible for me to raise some other issues? I do have a constituent on the line who would like to speak, and I also have some suggestions after, my own 311 requests and so forth, and talking to some constituents. So it's going to be not it. Okay. So
finish with Chestnut.
Okay. Are we finished with Chestnut and military? Okay. So I'm just gonna. So I would like to just say a few things.
Connie, hang on 1 minute, please. I wanted to make sure that we're finished with Chestnut.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Let me know.
So,
if you
Director
are
Lott, did you have anything else? Are we okay with, you're okay with Jam coming out and do something separate?
Again, we'll see if we can accommodate, and if we can, we will.
Okay. So who's my point of contact with that? Tanya? Sorry, Tanya. I'm from Southern Virginia, so excuse
no
my
problem.
name.
It's Tanya. It's Tanya, and you definitely can reach out to me and we'll work with you.
Okay. All right. John, did you have anything for Chestnut Street?
No, not for Chestnut Street, but I do have one or two more questions.
Okay, so we can move on. Connie?
Okay. Thank you so much, Director Lott, for coming and bringing your team, because I would like to just to give you some recommendations, if that's okay. Number one is when we are submitting 311 requests. I submitted like 18 311 requests that require DDOT's assistance in June for sidewalk repair. And up until maybe just last Friday, about 9 of the 18 were dealt with. And when I checked on the 9, I think about 3 were closed, but they were not dealt with at all. They were like either spray painted with arrows, so the repair wasn't done, or nothing happened, but they were closed. And so my suggestion is, rather than me submitting yet another service request, is it possible to change that interface so that whoever's making that request, the requestor, can say, I know it's closed, but it's not been dealt with. It's a real problem there. I don't know how to move forward with those. And there's several of them. So that's one. Another thing is, a constituent asked me to bring up 311 quality control. to look into it to ensure that traffic safety 311 DDOT tickets are properly followed up, not closed to include inaccurate responses. So it's similar to mine. No follow-up or no action. This does not include 311 for traffic tickets because that's done exceptionally well. So, and he had a reference ticket there. So I would like to make sure that that we have some way of interfacing. Okay, so, and then my next one that relates to 311 is I've brought this up in a Ward 4 when Council Member Louis George provided an opportunity for you to speak. This is before you were, I guess, you were nominated, but before you took your position. I had suggested that it would be really nice if we could be given a list of 311 requests that were made by our constituents as well as by ourselves as a courtesy, you know, like a quarterly report of some kind, so that then we can go over with our community engagement person truly what's a priority. I find that this has been very difficult. I mean, I've been a commissioner since January only, but there have been tickets, requests out from 2 years back, and there's just no way to move them forward. You know, of course, there's COVID and everything. There's always things, there's research challenges, but I would like to be able, as a commissioner, to be able to prioritize, like to be able to talk to all the constituents and say, really, the playground is more important to me. Can you fix this? And this intersection is really deadly. Let's fix that. You know, so to be able to work more closely with DDOT, and I would like for something to happen there so that we have an understanding of what's outstanding, what we can do to work together to like get you know, to get down this list. Another request is alley problems versus potholes. You know, I talked to a DDOT representative and potholes are done really quickly. I mean, I've been really amazed, so thank you very much. You know, I make a request, it's done like within 24 hours. But alley issues, which actually affect a lot of homes, especially as the winter comes up, is a real major problem. Like even the alley behind my house where the former commissioner put in a request has been going on for years and nothing is happening. And I know we have alley palooza and so forth, but these alleys really do affect multiple homes. So sometimes there's a house with a pipe, you know, the water pours down, there's ice all the way down the alleys and the kids play in the alley. So I would like something to happen there, some kind of like a tiger team that works faster to get some of these things repaired before it becomes an even greater problem. All right, because I've busted my tire multiple times and each time I bust my tire, it's a $400 affair. You know, it's just, and that, okay, it's not a person, but that's still a problem. And then the last thing I'd like to bring up is TSAs. So I understand you have a new process. What I wanted to understand about this new process is how do you fold in the requester and the ANC commissioner? This is very important. You know, we are told a study has been done. We're not involved. We were not taken around with, you know, the contractor who's doing it. We're not given a courtesy call. We don't know really what's done. There's no transparency. And I have a constituent on the line who would like to come and ask a question about a longstanding issue regarding this, where we didn't see the study. We were told it was done, but the problem remains. The core problem remains. And so if it's possible, can we bring John into this conversation so he can say what he needs to say directly to Director Lott?
What's his last name, Connie? Is it Silson?
Yeah, Silson. Yeah, I guess that's Silson. I don't know. I've only spoken to John by email, so I don't know how to pronounce his last name correctly. So if we can elevate John, then he has a chance to speak. Thank you. John, you're muted.
Sorry, going through the wonderful feature of unmuting myself. First, Connie, thank you very much for the introduction. Commissioners, thank you very much for taking a moment of your time. I know these meetings can be long, and I always appreciate your interventions on the neighborhood's behalf. Director Lott, thank you also for your time. You know, I think in some ways you must have the hardest job in DC trying to get people to be a little safer on our roads. You know, I've been working with DDOT following the submission completion of a petition for my block, which is the 3500 block of McKinley Street. It's the one, as you know, the neighborhood, sir, where if you were at Broad Branch Market going down Broad Branch and you turn right, you go down the hill there. I noticed the parallel in the conversation this evening. All of the roads that we're talking about as being dangerous are collectors or above in DC's road grading system. My observation living on a collector on McKinley is that, people are trying to get wherever they're going as rapidly as they possibly can. And I am deeply, deeply sympathetic to the same issues that other people see on other streets. Commissioner Gore, I, for one, constantly drive at 22 miles an hour on Chestnut Street, specifically to slow everybody else down. I've been doing it for a long time in DC, and I've been passed in a double yellow more than once by a really impatient driver. So what I wanted to talk about quickly was just sort of what's happening on McKinley Street in a way that I think can frame it for you, but then also kind of what I should do as next steps, right? I recognize that probably we're caught up with a little bit in the process change that you outlined earlier. Like I said, McKinley is a collector. As I measure it anyway, I had to foot pace it quickly because, as you all know, there's a lot of traffic on that road. I think it's at the lower end of the width for a collector road. And I think in a lot of ways, it being a little bit smaller on the scale of collectors, right? Military is a grade above, but Nevada is a much bigger collector. It has slightly fewer of the safety measures installed upon it that would increase driver safety, right? This is really a road that was built a very long time ago. We live in an old city that was not really built for the kind of traffic that we have today, which is fine, right? I'm not trying to chase cars off my road. I'm just trying to get them to be a little safer. So we did a petition on our block, and really it's not just our block. I would posit that it is probably, even though I don't live on them, all of the blocks between the intersection with Western Avenue and Broad Branch. So that's basically all the blocks where one lane of parking has been eliminated, right? And what that has done on all of those blocks is it has made it so that cars have a free right of way, which we sometimes like in our street to a little bit of an aircraft carrier, right? People see the open road after they've been in a bottlenecked city street and they're ready to go. And so what we asked for our block is for DDOT to take a look at some traffic calming measures. We're not real particular about what those ought to be. You guys are the engineers, but there should probably be something. And just to name a few examples, right? There's no double yellow down the middle. There's no striping for parking. The crosswalks are degraded, and so they're not really clear. The stop signs are not double backed. But there are also, more creative options too, of course, at the city's discretion. Means to reduce the width of the travel lanes, right? Buses use McKinley, so you have to be careful about that, obviously. But we all know, from studies about driving that smaller lanes reduces traffic speed. So I had a bit of a delightful, and I actually mean that, pen pal relationship with Donnice Jackson and then Christian Pinheiro on the DDO team. They were both super, super responsive when I emailed them, and I really always appreciated that. But we sort of come to a spot where we're stuck, right? I think that maybe a study has been done, but I'm not sure because I didn't hear, as Connie mentioned. And if it hasn't, it's COVID, right? We're patient. We're looking for a long-term solution here. But it would be nice to see some kind of change to the way that McKinley is handled. Christian Pinheiro recently had some 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs cut and posted on the street. Those are obviously helpful, but we all know that that's a suggestion at best to drivers in this area. The last thing that I wanted to say is I've been joking around with one of the police officers who's been doing enforcement on the bottom of McKinley at the intersection of McKinley and Nevada. Because literally, it's not like we don't have overturned cars because people can't get going that fast, right? But he's like really just making money for the city down there. And enforcement is great. I love it. But creating a dynamic where an officer doesn't need to spend his time enforcing routine stop sign running and speeding is going to be better for the city because he can spend his time doing other things. He's a great guy. I don't know his name, unfortunately, but I think I would love to see DDOT get engaged on this project. And I also would love DDOT to think about the rest of the street. As we all know, there are a lot of children in this neighborhood. They all walk to school, et cetera, et cetera. you guys know the story. So that's my story. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, but I really want to say thank you very much for your time and commissioners for allowing me to speak for a few minutes. Thank you.
So just real quick, I'm trying to make sure I'm clear on what specific issues on McKinley. Is it speeding that's the issue? What are the issues so I can just make sure I'm clear?
Yeah, sure. From our vantage, there are two issues. Number one is speeding, right? It's a 25-mile-an-hour street, but honestly, with the DC's new approach towards speed limit, it could be a 20-mile-an-hour street pretty easily. It's narrow enough, certainly, to be one. We routinely see cars traveling up our street, and it's impressive that they're able to do this, quite frankly, at like 35, 40 miles an hour. And as a parent, right, I know that once a car is moving faster than 25 or 30 miles an hour, that's when you get into serious injury state, right? That's the first one. And the second one is stop sign running. I mean, I don't know in whose mind an octagon turns into a triangle, but there's a yield rule in our neighborhood big time. And I don't want to blame people from Maryland, because I see people with DC plates do it just as much as others, but it's those two things, speeding and not stopping at intersections completely.
Okay.
Yes, and as John said, some of those crosswalks truly are degraded, and all around like the school area and near Lafayette, a lot of these kids are walking to school because it's the neighborhood school, but those crosswalks are quite dangerous. They are not, they should be repainted, really. They should be very clear, and they should be protective of pedestrians. And so I think having degraded crosswalks, having no double yellow line, as John said, these are like all these cues that tell a driver you need to be more careful. So I think that's what he'd like, and not just having a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. It's not enough, is what he's saying, because of the way the road is, and people do pick up speed. Thank you so much for listening.
John, I want to check in with Director Lott on his time allotment, because he actually wanted to start earlier than 8:10. Do you have a few more minutes, or do you need to go?
I'm happy to stay on, Commissioner.
You're okay? Okay. So Chris Frombaluti, then John Higgins.
Okay, I'm glad you stayed for me because I have something nice to say. I have nothing but, so I've been a commissioner for 12 and a half years, and I want to say that I've had very good luck in general with DDOT. In the past year, I've had outstanding responses from your urban forestry division. And in particular, I want to thank Vera Urton and Earl Usler. I'll send you this as a memo also. But this week, we had a serious incident in my district where a 100-foot tall heritage tulip poplar on private property was hit by lightning. The damaged tree towered over the intersection and presented a clear danger. The trunk actually had a split in it, and you could see the dead branches, 80 feet up in the air. As it was a heritage tree, my constituent could not remove the tree without considerable penalty unless the city gave permission. I mean, the penalties in thousands of dollars. After 10 days of trying to get some response from DDOT, my constituent asked me if I could help. Remembering my good experience about 6 months ago with Vera on a previous issue, I sent her an email on Sunday asking her assistance. Within hours, and this is on Sunday, Vera responded that she would look at the tree in the morning, and by 10 a.m., that was this morning, 10 a.m. this morning, she had visited the site, filed a report that the tree was hazardous, and she issued a permit so that it could come down without any penalty to the owner. I just see that as excellent dedication, and I really appreciate the work of urban forestry. They're a pleasure to deal with.
Thank you, Commissioner.
John, I believe you were next, then Peter.
Okay, yeah, I have one area of concern, and I too can end my dialogue with DDOT on a positive note. One is the status of the Slow Streets program. We considered that earlier this year as a commission. We declined, I believe, because it was kind of short notice. And I'm wondering what is the status of that program? Are there any more opportunities for participating in that? I'm particularly concerned about Tennyson Street. We just came home from our vacation the other night. We were driving down Tennyson. We're I used to live on 32nd Place off that. There are 3 speed bumps between Western and Utah. But between Utah and Oregon, there are no speed bumps. And my constituents are concerned that maybe there could be an additional speed bump or 2 in that section. So I just would like to mention that and maybe get an update on slow streets, or have you sent something to us about slow streets. On the positive side, as I mentioned, we were coming back from vacation. We were out of town for about 8 weeks. And I mentioned that I lived on Oregon at Knollwood. And in the 8 weeks, the Oregon project was pretty much completed at Knollwood. And it looks great. I drove down it, I walked down it, and it really is a nicely finished program. There are some little piles of junk here and there, and maybe some barriers which are going to have to come down. But in general, I think that project is pretty much complete, and it's a well done project. We appreciate it. And in that regard, I've only had conversations with Jim a few times this year, but in each case, she was very responsive and very courteous. So there you are.
Thanks, Commissioner. Back, I believe it was in May, end of May, Commissioner, we actually ended our Slow Streets program and said we would look at kind of 2.0 or reimagining what slow streets might look like. And so what we're going to now is that in the budget, the FY22 budget, we have about $9 million that's been placed in the budget for reimagining public spaces. So what you'll find is that, and actually next month, October, we'll roll out the first one, which is our open streets, which we'll have along Georgia Avenue. And this will be about a 2.5 mile rate, 200 mile stretch on Georgia Avenue, where the street will be blocked off. It'll allow opportunity for pedestrians, bicyclists to actually have and take over the roadway. Essentially, businesses to come out and set up their shops and engage in a public space. And then on this particular public space will be on Georgia Avenue. What was put in place in the budget was we'll have the two main streets, which is Georgia Avenue, and I believe we're doing one on 7th Street. But there's also been money put in the budget to have one of those done in each of the 8 wards. So you'll find that that's something that we're planning now. We'll do the first one in October, the beginning of, I think it's October the 2nd. And then we'll be doing additional ones throughout the year. And so for each ward, the smaller ones that'll be done in each ward, those will be coordinated and worked out, I believe, with the council member and with the commission, the ANC commissions as a whole. And so you'll see kind of a schedule going out. We have the first one in October, excuse me. And then we'll do the next larger one in the spring. And then the ones for each specific ward will be done throughout the year. And so we'll kind of be coordinating that with the commission, with the council members, and with the council members in conjunction with the ANC commissions. And then as it pertains to, you mentioned something about speed humps on, I think you said Utah?
Speed humps, yeah, between Utah and Oregon on Tennyson. And there are none. And we could probably use a couple.
Okay, all we ask one of the things that we've changed here recently over the past year or so in terms of speed hump requests is we're just asking for the commission to make a vote, pass a resolution for that, and we will install the speed humps, provided that particular street is a street that we can actually put speed humps or a speed table on. So that's all that we're asking for that. I can't think right off on Tennyson about that particular location, but that's what we're asking just in general. And if it warrants, if it meets all the warrants for speed hump, then we're absolutely happy to do that based on getting that commission approval.
Thank you.
Sure.
Peter, then I know Randy also had some questions.
Okay, I'll do this very quickly. Director, my district includes the Chevy Chase Circle. The Friends of Chevy Chase have been working for, Friends of Chevy Chase Circle have been working for several years with the National Park Service and Maryland and DC to improve the circle, to improve the plantings, to make safe the trees, and to make it so that people actually can get around the circle without killing themselves. As part of that, DDOT and the Maryland Transportation Department or Highway Administration agreed to a division of labor on road markings and signage. My understanding as a member of the board of the Friends of Chevy Chase Circle is that DDOT has not finished. DDOT has actually let the contract, and I believe has said that it has the signage that it has promised to put up, but hasn't gotten it all up. And that particularly involves pedestrian crossings to the circle. Can you tell me where that stands, and can you make a commitment when that's going to be done?
Commissioner, as far as I know, and it was actually Commissioner Speck after the dedication at the WMATA bus depot, a week or two after that, we actually made the installation of the additional signage on that. And the only reason I'm bringing that up to make Commissioner Speck, because I believe it was actually, it may have been one of your constituents, Commissioner Jocelyn, but someone came up to me at that particular dedication and said, hey, we need the additional signage. And so it was about a week or two later that we actually put up the additional signage along the Chevy Chase Circle. So if there's something else that's not missing, if you let me know, I'll make sure that we do that. But we did put some additional signage up.
I will check that, but I have emails as recently as 48 hours ago from the chair of the Friends of Chevy Chase Circle saying that signage with regard to particularly the pedestrian crossings and warnings ahead of time that DDOT had committed to put up, it is still not up. I will get you an update, and I will get a diagram of if in fact that is not up, I will get you a diagram that says was not up. And then finally, I'd just like to say with regard, I thought we were going to have more time to discuss, and I'm not going to drag you any further through that. 311 requests. We had this sidewalk palooza business, and I put in a bunch of them. And the truth is that you guys have done a wonderful job at that sidewalk shaving thing. That really, you're good at that. I mean, you got a lot of that done. But that's what we understand. Every time I put in a more complicated request where the problems with the sidewalks are really serious, and they seem to be involved with tree roots, it doesn't get done. I mean, a classic example, Northampton Street and 39th. There is a 12-foot section of sidewalk missing. It's been missing for years. You probably have 4 requests just from me on that. I do, in being totally honest, check that it has to do, I assume it has to do with tree roots. What, do you like put those in another pile? What do you do with those requests? I mean, those are the ones when I circled back, I did a bunch in June, I did a bunch in July. And when I circle back, a lot of the places where I put in requests and you could be dealt with shaving the sidewalk, they were done. And thank you. But anyone where it was a tree root thing, and those are the ones they're stopping the wheelchairs. They're the trip dangers. What's the deal with those? Well, how do you handle those?
So real quick, Commissioner, did you say Hampton Street and 39th?
Northampton and 39th Street. I'm right back of the post office there. You'll see that basically the homeowner has put pebbles in or gravel in, but that's been gone. There's no concrete there, and there's nothing been anything there for years. And I guess the question is, it looks for a time as if you did this flexible pavement, this permeable pavement thing around routes. And I don't know whether you've thrown that overboard as not working or something, but a lot of these places where there are root issues, I mean, on my block in Military, there are loads of pieces of pavement. They're probably 8 inches, 9 inches, distorted because of roots. I understand if you say, well, we got to cut the tree down to put in a sidewalk that's going to stay, but it seemed to me that there's there's a solution there, a compromise, which is to put in a flexible sidewalk. Is that not done anymore?
Oh, believe me, it's still done. And we've gotten a lot of pushback in some communities and some neighborhoods because we have done that. So yes, we are still doing that. The porous flexible paving is the alternative that we do use when the sidewalks are disrupted or impacted by tree roots. And so with this particular location, I'll make sure that Tanya or Christian have that note down, and we'll get someone out there to make the repair. I'm not sure what happened in this particular location. If you said that service requests haven't put in for it, But we handle those just like all the other service requests that we're getting in. We prioritize and try to get them done. So we are still repairing the sidewalks. If it is impacted by tree roots, then yes, we are using the PFP, the porous flexible paving. If it is not impacted by the sidewalk, then we'll just go back and put concrete down or brick if that's what it is. So it just kind of depends on what the actual issue is.
Mr. Gore assembled a bunch of our 311 requests, and I'm betting the other commissioners have see this same pattern of when,
No, mine, I didn't. Mine was very random. I had put in a request for exactly a buckling sidewalk because of tree roots, and that was done first. And that was finished. It was really nicely done on 3519 Nevada. And then there was another one that was done. One looked like a sidewalk, with concrete. Another one looked like tar, I guess, and that was redone. But then a third one was not done, even though it was closed. So I haven't experienced the same thing, but I have the sidewalks are not level. Those repairs are kind of ugly, unfortunately. That's my only criticism, really. It's like they put the tar down, the tar is spreading everywhere. It looks terrible. It's on McKinley, it's on Morrison, it's on these streets, and it doesn't look so good. And I'm not sure what the solution is there, but it's not great. But now no one is going to trip and fall. So.
And just one last point to that, Commissioner Jocelyn, and for all the commissioners. So the sidewalk repairs are actually done in-house. So that is done by our in-house team. And so for the past year that we've been in COVID, those teams have been working on a somewhat of a bifurcated schedule. So we haven't been working at full 100%, really trying to keep those teams from being, trying to keep them safe from COVID. So we usually have one team in for 1 week, and then another team will come in a separate week. So they've never been in fully deployed since we've been in COVID. So that's been part of the challenge in terms of trying to be as responsive as we could be on these type of repairs. But hopefully, as we're moving out of COVID, and hopefully that will be soon, that we'll be completely out of it, then we'll be able to redeploy at 100%. And so we'll be able to make these repairs a lot more timely. But right now, that's how we've been deploying our staff, just to try to make sure that we're not having everybody in the offices, in the trucks at the same time to prevent the spread.
Got it.
But I'll take a look specifically at the Northampton and 39th Street. And if you have a service request that has been issued, if you can email that to me, that would be helpful. If you don't, that's fine, and we'll still get out there.
Mr. Gore assembled all of our 311 requests that we've reviewed and found have not been fulfilled. And so you have an entire list. I think Kristen has it, but I mean,
yeah, I put mine in.
Those particularly. Or Kristen. Thank you. Look, thank you. Lisa, we let the poor man go?
Rand has some questions.
I've been very, very patient, as Director Lott. He's been very patient as well. And my key complaint about sidewalks is one on Jocelyn Street. On Broad Branch Road between Jocelyn and Nevada. And there's one there that the resident has actually painted on the sidewalk, careful, and put red markers all around it. But that's been there for 3 years, at least 3 years. And it's nothing's ever been done about it. I put in several 311 requests on it. The other issue that I wanted to just ask you about, and if you've got a quick answer, it's fine. The status of the Connecticut Avenue reversible lane study. I know that there are a lot of people who are very interested in that, and we were expecting to have some recommendation from DDOT by the end of the summer. And I'd just like to know where that stands.
Yeah, the study has been completed. We have made some assessments and ultimately decided on a recommendation. We just have not rolled that out yet. I'll sit down and have some conversations with the mayor and let her know the pros and cons of the recommendation that we're going to make, and then make a determination as to when we will roll that out, and then we can get back to the community on. But we have completed the study. We have made a recommendation. I have talked to Councilmember Che about it as well, but we just have not rolled it out to the public yet.
Okay, we're all waiting with bated breath.
I think we all are.
Thank you very much, Director Lott. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Right before you go, Director Lott, last comment. Definitely want to thank you guys for repairing. I don't know if you walk Western Avenue right off of Chestnut Street, but you might remember there is a elevated sidewalk, probably about maybe 100 feet down, right by a big tree. It had been there for years, and your team came out and filled it. Thank you so much. I talked to the homeowner that lives right in front of there. Very nice gentleman, and he was like, you know, I've been trying to get this fixed, and I don't know if he went through the 311 process, but thank the team for fixing that spot, because it was a big dip, and I know people have, you know, kind of tripped up on it. 31st Street railings. I'm not sure what happened there, but the railings have gone down, and now we just have poles. So if your team could get back to me on that, I would be greatly appreciated. The homeowner that lives in front of that, where the railings she is very upset about that. So if your team could please work with me to find a resolution on that. And one request for 311 that I just really want to highlight, 149 Alabama Avenue, Anacostia Avenue in River Terrace. It's on the PDF that I sent over. So that's obviously not my district. I was over there doing community service for Take the Shot DC and talked to some of the neighbors. There have been neighbors, I actually talked to one of the neighbors who actually fell, and she still has the scars on her face. So I personally talked to her, and I promised that community that I would get that spot corrected, because there's been a lot of falls over there. And I asked her if she reported it, and she said she hadn't. She had to go to the hospital and get stitches. She had a mole on her face that was ripped off her face. She was coming home one night and tripped and fell over it. And she said, you know, her honest response to me, honest response was, they don't care. So that broke my heart. So I really, really would hope that you guys take care of River Terrace over there and get that request fulfilled for them.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner, is it a sidewalk repair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, elevated sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to send you also a friend of mine. It was in, I believe, Zeldin's district, actually. He was running, and there's actually arrows to repair that sidewalk, but he took a tremendous spill just 2 days ago. I mean, like all along the side of his body. So these sidewalks are real tripping hazards. And if we can make some of these things happen faster, it'd be really, really good.
Sure. And Commissioner Goss, I believe someone said that y'all sent over a list.
Yeah.
Do you mind resending that to Christian and to Tanya, just to make sure that we have that? Because I just got a little note that a couple of them don't seem to have that. So if y'all can resend that, that'd be helpful.
I sent it through this afternoon, but I'll resend it as soon as we get off.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. I do have that list, and I can send it over to the director and internal staff.
Perfect.
Just to verify. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, can we let him go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
You
Thank you, everyone, so much for
Thank you.
coming.
Christian.
Bye-bye. Oh, man, they were good spirits, weren't they?
Yep.
So, Lisa, we have yet another bad chat by a Julia.
Yeah.
We need.
I saw it.
Yeah, we've got to stop this in the chat. There's some very inappropriate chats going on, and we're going to stop that. And if you don't stop it, then we're going to remove you from the meeting.
Yeah, and Randy, I'm glad you said that, because I had a kind of a one strike rule for the person that I did remove. But folks, I don't know what's going on. We've never had this in our ANC meeting since I've been a commissioner. I do not want to get it started. Please be professional in the chat, please.
Okay, we're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is a report on the small area plan process. And Commissioners Chang and Gosling, you want to give us that report?
Connie, why don't you go first, since I was not at
So, because I can't hear you. What did you say, Peter?
I said, if you want to report on the most recent advisory committee meeting, I was not at it. I was.
Sure. So we had the last Community Advisory Committee meeting, which was the 6th one. It took place on August 12th, and it went from 5:30 to 7:12. A lot of the time was spent on the Chevy Chase Day, September 18th, where Robert Gordon, the president of Chevy Chase Citizens Association, gave everyone an update of all the plans. And so all of the things that he listed came to fruition. It's a really packed agenda, a lot of activities for young and old, and then asked us, you know, what we thought and what things we needed. And so some of the organizations that are represented on this Chevy Chase Small Area Plans Community Advisory Committee asked for tables, including the ANC, as well as the Chevy Chase Main Street and Northwest Neighbors Village and so forth. There's a list of them. So there's maybe, I don't know how many tables, but a good number. And at that point, I had recommended that we bring in the district's Department of Health's, like a vaccination clinic. And I was so thankful for Dee Smith's help in the end, from Mary Chay's office, for helping me make this happen. Because as a commissioner, sometimes you're listened to and sometimes you're not. And so I tried twice in August, and I don't know where the email went, but then I reached out, and Dee was very great at forwarding the email to the right people. And now it's all going to happen, and we will, yay, have a pop-up vaccination clinic. And my daughter, who's turning 12 on Friday, the day before, will be there getting her vaccine. And there will be representatives there to talk to anyone who has questions about COVID-19 and the vaccination process and so forth. So I encourage people to show up. The other thing we talked about at the meeting was the small area plan draft vision and goals, and sort of went over sort of like a one-page document, which is what the Office of Planning is working on to basically share with the community at Chevy Chase Day, and then to to go over all of the sort of the what and the vision that they were able to collate together from all of the recommendations through the survey that they put out and through the visioning workshops that they conducted. And they did share some of that already with us at the ANC meeting on July 23rd. And they continue to refine it, and that will be unveiled. And those things we can look at the presentation. You can see it on their website, publicinput.com/Chevy Chase. You could find all the visioning workshops, the output, and you can find the presentation that they gave to the ANC. It's on there. The other thing that they mentioned was that when they move forward with the design charrette, I asked the question, will the SAP go past the fiscal year? The answer is yes. They are dealing with delays. They will push the timeline out. They have not gotten the agreement with the contractor that they want to conduct the design charrette. So they have to sort of delay it, and they will complete the steps. And then the other question was from someone, I think it might have been even myself, the charrette program, is it a single event or is it multiple things? What is it going to look like? And we were told there will be multiple, and that the planning is in person as well as digital, as well as virtual, so they're hoping to see people and to be able to collect those thoughts and to have iterations and then to do something over Zoom. They really wanted to make sure that when those dates are set, that we help them broadcast it and make sure that people are around. And that was really the extent of that particular talk. So we have not heard anything since. I think we're asked if we wanted to give some comments on the document, the summary document, which some of us did. And one of those comments was to make sure that we understand that this plan is really not it's not just for the next 2-3 years, but it's really a longer term plan, where environmental sustainability should come in. And that was something that we did talk about. And we kind of talked about it in that document. So hopefully that will reveal itself when OP shares it with the public. And that's all I have in terms of that particular report out. The other thing I wanted to mention, and Peter, jump in if you'd like, the information exchanges that in April we had a resolution. It is going forward, meaning what the ANC will host. We are hoping that to start this month with information exchanges that can add to the process, that can help the process, the small area plan process that is. And so there's several things in the pipeline. I am really hoping that we can reserve, that the community can reserve. I'm sorry, that we can reserve a few dates on the calendar so that when details come, people know that it will take place on that specific date. So I don't know if we want to discuss that now. Peter, you can jump in, and then we can share with everyone.
So look, I think more building on what Connie said, I think that we've talked among ourselves about trying to do a series that the sole purpose of which is to help residents of this community have more information to assess what they see as OP and some of the advocacy groups roll out proposals for that, some of which will get embodied in the small area plan. I think that I hope that we could agree to the Thursday dates that we've discussed. I think that we need to be flexible on two counts. I think that that it kind of depends on when we can get good people to join us for these sessions. And so I hope we're flexible about beyond the first couple, the scheduling for the others. And my suggestion is that I draft a flyer that we can hand out at Chevy Chase Day that would have sort of the first couple, but then sort of say other topics to be covered will be this, the exact scheduling, TK, as we said in the journal.
So if people can start by, and this is what we'd like, I think, for people to sort of mark and hold on their calendar Thursdays, starting on September 23rd would be good. That's ambitious, but we'd like to have that date be maybe the first panel. And then September 30th, I've already spoken to my panelists to try to hold on to that day if possible. But I agree with Peter, nothing is set in stone yet, but the intention is to go from September 23rd to October 21 and to have a weekly panel that's an hour long and that can add some facts and then some ideas that could be helpful to the community as we go through this plan. Because the key thing about this small area plan is that it will help us decide what we really want to see. And it would benefit us if we participate and make that plan the strongest it can be, so that any kind of development will take that into consideration.
Okay, and the other thing I just want to say is that I do think that the other reason to be flexible about the information sessions is that I think the nature of the conversation is likely to change when the community is presented with pictures, either OP's pictures or 3 Visions picture. And I think we need to be agile and ready to respond. And in that regard, I'm not looking for a vote, but I hope it's the consensus of the commission that I be allowed to write some text to satisfy the Office of Planning about what a community forum might look like, just to reserve the possibility that the community might need such a forum. This would be different from the information sessions that we're talking about. Erkin Arsbeck has talked about wanting a document from us. We produced any number of them since the spring, but about what we have in mind by September 25th. I suggest that I draft something just so we have the option open, but it may not be necessary. There may be so many meetings on this and so many forums that it's not necessary at this point, but I want to be able to, if the other commissioners find that acceptable, that to kind of reserve the resources that OP might provide us as assistance organizing larger meetings than the kind of meetings we're talking about with these information sessions. Is that all right with everybody?
I have no objection, Peter. I think it's there's nothing wrong with holding that as a possibility and to get help and so forth. But let's see how things go. I'd like to answer a question that was posed. Where on the calendar might we expect to see a charrette in connection with the small area plan? Office of Planning told us in August that likely it'll take place in October. We were not told when in October, early, mid, or late. I don't know. And I don't know if it's because they are delaying it, meaning they're extending it past this fiscal year. So anytime after October 1, but we have not seen any dates, and hopefully we will soon after Chevy Chase Day, after they reveal what they have to the public. Perhaps there'll be some dates on the calendar. Yeah, so let's work together, Peter, on this flyer, actually. So if you and I, because I have an account and I can help with some graphics and so forth. But as long as we tell people to hold Thursdays, they can hold it. And if we don't have something, we don't. But if we do have something, then we know it's on a Thursday. We have not talked about time. Randy, I don't know if you wanted to, 7 o'clock. That's what I thought, was 7 to 8. Seems like a good time.
We've just got to get this thing on the road. So
yeah, but I'm saying if we can just let them hold 7 to 8 Thursdays, starting September 23rd, going to October 21, not a bad 5 dates. Okay. Commissioner Gore?
Yeah, I would just be, maybe give more. I don't think an hour is appropriate. I think some of them could go for an hour, but, I'm thinking about the panel that I'm real interested in. Community Land Trust and the nonprofit, those panels are going to go longer.
Going to be longer. That's true.
Look, we don't have a meeting that doesn't go longer than anything we say. We're just following.
Our track record's not good.
Yeah, it is courteous to our attendees, however, if we can give them a specified time. And I'm sometimes embarrassed that our agenda is so inaccurate. And because there are people who come for specific things.
Exactly.
And if we go way over, then
the advantage here, Randy, is that there will be one subject. So they'll know, if they want a subject, they can come in anytime, for the 4 hours.
Yeah, I think we should be more courteous though to our attendees and be more specific if we can, and stick to our schedules better. We just need to do that.
So at the very least, they hold it from 7 to 9, and then a detailed agenda where we kind of stick to it. If it's an hour, it's an hour. If it's something that's more complex with more panelists, it will be 2, but it won't go past 2 hours. We'll just have to be firm. Yeah. Okay. I'm done. Are you done, Peter? Okay, so let's move on.
Lisa, you want to address the next issue, the report on the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee?
Yes, and I wanted to see though, Randy, if you wanted to call for community comments. I think we have D on the line and Ward 4.
Yeah, I neglected earlier to ask for whether there were community announcements, and
just D is left.
D is no longer here.
D's there, but Ward 4 is dropped.
Okay, that was probably Matthew.
Yeah.
D, is there anything you want to add as an addition? Okay, thank you, D. Thank you for sticking around too.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Okay.
Skip over them. I remembered earlier.
Yeah.
So real quick on
okay.
The
Lisa,
racial and social equity standing committee. Not too much to report that's different from the last time we reported. We did not meet in August because of the ANC recess. And Estelle Mitchell is still working on trying to get a meeting with Christy Lopez, who was one of the co-chairs of the Police Reform Commission. Me and Randy did get a recent email from another, and I can't remember, another staffer in Council Member White's office, who's been really trying to help us schedule, it might have been from Estelle, really been trying to help us establish a meeting with Chief Conti. So we did have something on the books. I think it was for the 28th. And before we could put that out, Chief Conti had something to come up. So we're hoping that we get that meeting with him pretty soon. I'm really grateful for Councilmember White's office because they're very adamant once they found out that he didn't hold a commitment to meet with us. They're very adamant in getting that meeting with him, and they're still working on it. So I think our email came from them. Was it yesterday, Randy?
I think it was last week.
Last week, very recently. So they're really working on that. Our next meeting should be September, I believe, the 21st, which is the third Tuesday. Yep, September 21st. So I'm hoping that we can get some administrative things done. We still have to approve our mission statement. And I know Cal and Renee and Maria had been working on some internal stuff. So I'm hoping at least until we get this meeting straight, we could get some of those things accomplished, as well as go back to some of the standing committee recommendations and actually start formulating how we're going to work through those. Randy, you got anything else? Did I leave anything else out?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you, Lisa. And we'll go on to commission business now. The minutes for our July 26th meeting, Peter has prepared those and circulated them to commissioners who've made some changes and modifications. With those changes and modifications, is there anything else anyone would like to say about the minutes for the July 26th meeting? All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes? 6-0. John, you want to present the checks?
Yes. Randy paid a Verizon check while I was away, so we're approving one of those retroactively Verizon for $157.64. And just today I got the current Verizon bill for $157.16, so we'd like to approve those two. I just kind of got back in gear, so I don't have the Zoom numbers in front of me, but we have two Zoom bills reimbursing for Randy. They generally run around $280 each.
$222.58.
Okay, so both of those. So those are the only ones on the agenda right now. So I would move that those payments be approved.
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. All right. The other thing Commissioner Zeldin asked that I raised with the commission is the approval of his expenditure of $99 for 500 ANC business cards. Is there any objection to that?
I just asked a question. I sort of beat everybody to the punch, got my own business cards. I'll dig out the bill, but if we're going to approve his, we might as well approve mine too. I mean,
yes.
Okay.
500 cards. I haven't used 500 cards in 12 years. I mean, it's
well, we're all set. I'm just going to have to run a bunch of times. That's all.
I still have a few of the cards left from my original stack, which was 9 years ago. So, okay. I don't think we need a formal resolution to approve that, but when the reimbursement comes up, there's no objection of anyone, okay? All right. Possible items for our September 27th meeting. The usual reports on small area plan process and the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee. And the big issue is going to be the presentation by and discussion with Murray about the proposal, its proposal for the sports fields at the ECC. And the only other thing I have right now on that agenda is a discussion, possible vote on the commission FY22 budget, which we have to approve, I think, before the new fiscal year starts on October 1st. And John, I assume you'll be preparing something for us on that.
Yeah, we'll probably stick close to what we have now.
Right.
And between now and then, I just caught up on the news about Stephanie, so we will get together and start working on the transition.
Okay.
There's one other issue. Are you, Randy, going to send for Chevy Chase Day? I intend to stay at the table a good deal of the time, but are you going to send out some sign-up sheet so that we're sure
Yeah,
it's staffed?
I will.
I'll be there pretty much all day, Peter. And I'm also, I went to the office this weekend to look at the banner. So I'll be there early to pick up the
Set it up.
banner. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did
I'll
you
be
have any
there.
trouble- did you have any trouble getting into the office?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I did not, but just to let you guys know, and I forgot the lady's name that I spoke with. She was like, "Where's your key?" She was like, "You guys need to get keys." Now she's
Yes.
in, but she was quite clear that this should not be a habit, and we
I
all
agree.
need our key.
I agree. They changed the lock though, and so as far as I know, there were no keys made for us.
Yeah,
So-
there were, I'll check back with Stephanie on that. We got a bunch.
Oh, we do
I
have
guess we
keys?
just haven't-
Yeah, I thought the keys were made. They just need
Oh, well,
to
we
be given
we
to
need
us.
to get, we need to get keys to the
That was
commission.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Yeah, I've got a key.
Okay.
But
I-
okay.
I just want to mention,
I know, it's fine.
for
Fine.
Chevy Chase Day, I definitely will be there at 11 to help Robert Gordon with like cleaning up and setting up and so forth. But from 1 to 1:30, if this goes through, I will be manning or sitting at the SAP Community Advisory Committee table if there's enough people. So I think we'll have a table for that from 1 to maybe 2:30 right now. We have that. There's enough people to do it until then. So I'll be there only for half an hour and then I'll come back to the ANC table at 1:30. Just to let everyone know. That's why I'm
Okay.
not going to be
Sounds
there
like
exactly
we
at
have
1.
plenty of people there for the ANC table.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I do have to step away to get my daughter vaccinated. So
Sure.
that's my
Sure.
goal to do
That's
that.
important.
It's like really important to me. Yeah.
Very
To
important.
get that done. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you all. And for the very few people who stayed until the bitter end.
Really, thank you guys. I mean, for staying as
We
long
need
as they
to make
have.
sure, Randy, we save that chat.
Yes.
Yeah, Stephanie is on the chat and hopefully she'll save it.
Well, the chat
she's
is
there now.
automatically
Yeah,
with the Zoom video.
Okay.
So
that's right.
I'll have the chat
Yeah.
as well.
It's just
Okay.
the Q&A that's not saved, I think.
Right, that's
Okay,
correct.
bye everyone.
Okay,
Bye,
thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.